y'all, it's Rachel, and you are listening to Wine, Dine, and 69, a podcast about dating, relationships, sex, and self-love. I hope everybody is doing well. Things are really fucking moving over here, let me tell you. I'm getting packed up to move next week, and there have been a lot of discoveries in terms of purpose and what's going on in like the career and job front. It's a really good feeling, and it's a long time coming. It took me quite some time to figure out, but I finally feel like I have a sense of what I want to do with the rest of my life and what my purpose is. So it feels really good. I kind of have been riding a high all week, so it'll probably translate a little bit to this opening. I also am kind of honestly trying to get this done early. I'm supposed to get my second vaccine this afternoon, and so there are a lot of things that I'm trying to rush to get done before I kind of anticipate being very under the weather and unable to move. Some of my friends have gotten the second vaccine, and it did not go it went fine. Like, they got vaccinated, but they felt like shit afterwards. So I kind of anticipate having a similar reaction. Get vaccinated, and hey, guess what? It's May, and May, aside from being my birth month, is also apparently National Masturbation Month. And we've talked about it before. I feel very passionately about masturbation. I kinda want to talk a little bit about that before we get into the body of the episode. So masturbation is critical, in my opinion, to understanding how your body works and what works best for you, so that you can work to communicate that to a partner. And I understand that there are some blocks that people have around masturbation. I think there's a lot of shame that can happen, a lot of shame and guilt. And I know in particular people with vaginas sometimes struggle with the idea of masturbation. And that's okay. And, if it is something that you struggle with, I would recommend talking to somebody about it. I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing that you can do for yourself. And it also is only going to enhance your sex life. And yeah, I think it's so important, and I recommend it. Mutual masturbation's great too. I mean, hey, like, that's a really cool way that you can show your partner what works for you. And I know that the thought can be a little bit awkward, but it can be kind of hot, and it's fun. And at the end of the day, you both learn how the other person likes to be touched, what kind of pressure is used. And it just is going to benefit you and your partner in the long run. So very pro masturbation. I think there's actually like a challenge for masturbation for the month of May. Don't know if you want to get off every day. I mean, if you want to, and you have the stamina for that, that's fantastic. At one point, I would have been all about that challenge. I just do not have the time these days. But yeah, I think that knowing that this is a month for masturbation, and to get in touch with yourself, it's just a really good opportunity to maybe try some different techniques. If you do the same things all the time, maybe switch it up a little bit, try a little bit of edging, try watching a different type of porn, or a different type of porn in general. I don't just mean visual porn, and we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, masturbation is so important. Again, it's a beautiful form of self-love and self-care. And I'm a really big fan, clearly. So let's get into a little bit of chatter about tools. So Allison, who is my college friend and was the guest for the first bonus episode that we had about PMDD, endometriosis, and pelvic floor tension, she mentioned this porn site to me called Bellesa. Hopefully I am pronouncing that correctly. I love it. I've been on it a lot recently, and I'm going to go ahead and read the description on the website because I think that it would do a better job than me just trying to explain it. So it's a porn company run by women, At Belesa, we believe that sexuality on the internet should depict women as we truly are, as subjects of pleasure, not objects of conquest. Belesa is a platform on which community members can find free and ethically sourced porn videos, read intimate erotic stories, explore sexual health articles on The Collective, shop for sex toys at the boutique, and watch the most authentic, pleasure-filled HD porn by Belesa Films, Belesa House. So, I mean, it's a porn company run by women, but it's not just porn for women. I mean, it has some really cool stuff. You can pick it says choose your tempo. They're sensual, passionate, rough. And one of the beautiful things about it is none of the orgasms are faked. They really want, and you can tell, like, everybody's having a fucking blast in these videos. It's really cool. And again, there's really cool sex ed articles, erotic stories. I know that I personally really got into, my first form of porn was fanfic. I loved Lord of the Rings fanfic and Buffy the Vampire Slayer fanfic. I was all about it. There's something really beautiful about written porn. So that's really cool to check out as well. And I don't know, I feel, for me personally, like, porn is great, but I feel like I need to revisit those roots, because I feel like I've kind of gotten desensitized in a way. So I have found Belesa to be a really cool tool because of that. And I'm currently watching, as I record this guy eating out this girl. I'm going to go ahead and close that. It's distracting. Yeah. Okay. So the cool thing about Belesa is that you get to pick how much you pay. It's kind of like a Patreon where you do a monthly fee. And depending on like which tier you do, you get different things. So the tier that I do, I also get to be a part of their Facebook group, which is really cool. It's just sharing recommendations, talking about sex, and having open conversations, giving advice, asking for advice, just really everything that I want from the world, just being more open and having these conversations. It's really awesome. Pay whatever you want. So yeah, check it out. Belesa, and they're, across the internet, different places, Instagram. It's really cool. And again, there's a boutique for sex toys as well. So love seeing stuff like this. And yeah, check it out. It could be a really cool tool. Another thing that's cool is, this guy looks like Ed Sheeran. Another cool thing that you could do is check out Dipsy, which is audio porn. So, maybe the written isn't your jam, and maybe the visuals aren't your jam. Maybe audio is. And hey, you know what? You can always revisit that Spank Bank. You can, the imagination is such a beautiful thing, and I think that we don't utilize it enough. So revisiting past sexual experiences, or even, making up one in your head and thinking about that, and really thinking about those details. So everybody's different, and what's going to work for you is going to be a little bit different, whether you are, what kind of strokes you like, or, whether if you do have a vagina, if it's going to be vaginal or clitoral. Just take this opportunity, this lovely May opportunity, to try out different things. Why not? I think that as a whole, we need to take this stuff a little bit less seriously. And, we're kind of going to talk about that in the body of this episode today. So just enjoy. Ultimately, your body is a beautiful thing. Your body is a wonderland. And take the time to play. That's what May is for. And so, yeah, take that time, really get in touch with yourself, and any sexual experiences that you have with another person in the future are only going to benefit from the fun that you have with yourself. They call it playing with yourself. And you know what? Like I said, it's a beautiful form of self-care and self-love. So kind of going to get into that in the episode a little bit, just kind of on that same topic of sex being about connection and fun. Today's guest is a teacher, kind of breaking up the format a little bit, but this conversation is incredible and I think kind of timely. So Today's guest is sex coach Ansley Brooke, and she has a really cool journey to becoming the sex coach that she is. We had a fantastic conversation. She's so incredible. I want to be just like her. And so, yeah, we talk about sexual dysfunctions and disorders, and it's not just erectile dysfunction. There are many different types of disorders, and you would be surprised how common they are. So many people experience them at one point or another in their life, and you know what? It's not the end of the world. So we talk about the different types, how you can handle them, how you can take the steps to work to get past them. I don't want to say recover because, again, it's not a big deal. It's not like an illness or a sickness or anything. Like, so common, everyone, so common. And we need to stop the shame around it. So potential causes, because a lot of the time it's not just physical. A lot of the time there are some psychological things going on in the background. And we also kind of touch on how you can communicate with your partner about it, how you can be a supportive partner, you can talk openly to your partner about it, and just how you can work together to still have fun. Because again, like, if you are in a couple where one person has a penis and another person has a vagina, like, penetrative sex isn't the end all be all. There are plenty of other beautiful things. So we kind of touch on that too. Definitely want to have Ansley back on in the future, just to talk about maybe some other things. Maybe, I don't know, I floated the idea of talking with her about anal at some point, so why not? Let's get into it. This is very weird. I have my work computer open while I'm recording this, and it's just kind of a bizarre feeling. Anyway, I've rambled on for long enough. Hey everybody, enjoy Masturbation May. Go out there and do the thing. Love yourself. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Ansley. Again, she's really incredible, and I learned a ton. So we're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and then we will get into it.
Hey there, I'm Megan Martin, and I put the manic in Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
And I'm Janelle Megan, and I'm a self-proclaimed Bond girl, and I make every conversation way too deep.
We're both professional actors, producers, and models.
Cause and Creation is a podcast where we talk about all things creative, including interviewing other awesome artists that are breaking new ground.
We'll be taking a deep dive into who they are, the work they do, and more importantly, what moves them as artists.
You'll get an inside look into the minds of award-winning filmmakers who are promoting new content, writers who are on the first draft of their novel, video game designers who are creating a whole new world from scratch, and so much more.
If you want to get to know a creative, or just want to get to know us, come hang out with us at Cause and Creation every other Thursday.
Cue the applause.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I am here today with my guest, sex coach Ansley Brooke. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you, Rachel, for having me.
I'm so excited. So I had a co-host in the original days of this, and we started doing a episode on sexual dysfunction, but we were kind of like, oh, we want to get an expert on here. So I'm excited to dive into this with you because I've gotten a couple questions about it from listeners. So
great. I'm happy to answer all your questions. And this is a really great topic because, a lot of people, they just don't have the facts. And you can't blame people for not knowing what they don't know. So that's why I do what I do. I'm here to educate. I'm here, as a sexpert, as a coach, and hopefully I can answer all of your questions and more.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, let's start kind of with, you're a sex expert. How did you find yourself here?
So it's kind of an interesting story. I actually worked as an executive in the healthcare industry for about 15 years. And, we'll get into this a little bit more, but just kind of touching on what society teaches us in regards to, what is success and what your goals should look like and what your life should look like and how many kids and how many, one marriage and one partner and 2.5 children and all of these things. And, I came from, a family that is my background's a little interesting. I come from a educated, pretty white yuppie family from the South, but I also I hopped back and forth on both sides of the tracks, to be honest with you. So, but I was still it was instilled into me that, money, titles, your career, everything is, laid out for you, and this is what you work towards. So, like a happy little, follower that I am totally not. I worked towards what I thought was going to satisfy me, make me happy, allow me to provide for my children. And so I just climbed the corporate ladder. I've always been a mentor, trainer, teacher in some sort of capacity. And I really like doing that. But, I found myself in the highest position that I was willing to go in as an executive in healthcare. My next option was, am I going to run a company and be gone even more than I'm already
Right.
gone? And as a director of operations, I felt like I was already running the company. So I got, to my, my last position that I held in that industry. And I looked around and I was so unfulfilled. I was so miserable. I was so overwhelmed. I used to hop on a flight every Monday or Tuesday and not return home until Friday. I have
Oh my gosh.
two children. I missed a lot. Now don't get me wrong, I made great money and bought a lot of nice, homes and cars and things
Sure.
and blah, blah, blah. But that is totally not what makes me happy. And what I'm understanding now doesn't make a lot of people happy.
Right.
I was in a marriage for over 20 years, and it was loveless, sexless. I mean, it's just a long story, but we'll keep it at that. And great guy, just not for me.
Oh
But
gosh, I've said that so many times about my own life.
I stayed for my children because of the childhood that I had. I just wanted to be able to provide them stability. I wanted to be able to provide them both parents in the household. And in retrospect, I would have done things differently. But you can't change the past. But through my progression into, higher roles and more responsibilities and learning more, I became very interested in working for myself and stop working for someone else and making them all the money.
Yep.
So, I have this idea of, becoming an entrepreneur, but in all honesty, I really didn't know exactly what it is that I wanted to do. Now, since I was very young, I always kind of flirted with the idea of, being a therapist, a counselor. Even when I went to school, and I was a music major, don't even ask. I know I'm all
Oh my
over the
gosh,
place.
are you
Yes.
No, I'm wondering if you're me. I majored in musical theater.
You do? Oh, wow. See,
Yeah.
I'm a vocalist, and so
Yeah, me too.
I'm trained in so many different areas, but I actually majored in vocal jazz.
Oh
I'm a
wow.
singer, songwriter, performer, but I very quickly realized that that was not going to really take me anywhere unless I just
Right.
wanted to live the life of trying to be at the right place at the right time and,
Yep.
know exactly the right people, because it's not all about your talent, unfortunately. So it's kind of funny how my career started, but I started really perfecting and using different skill sets and defining them, and like I said, perfecting them, and not that I'm perfect in anything, but I'm really good, at teaching people and mentoring and educating. And I took a lot of pride in taking people under my wing and developing them. And then, it's like giving them their wings so they can fly off.
Right.
But it just, for me, selfishly, it's very personally gratifying. That made my job, I think, to where I could actually, I stuck with it for as long as I did. But, becoming an entrepreneur, not having the degree in mental health or psychology or anything like that, I knew about the coaching industry. It's been around for a while now. And
Mhm.
I had kind of left, one company and took a small break, and then I kind of got lured back in by another company, which was a direct competitor, and the money and all of this stuff. And I went back. And then when I went back the second time, I was like, Ansley, what are you doing? You specifically told yourself, this is not the plan. This is not what you want to do. You don't want to travel all over the country, and by that time I was divorced. My kids are pretty much out of the house. I'm in a new relationship with a man that I love, and here I am on the other side of the freaking country, working and not coming home for weeks at a time. And so, finally it was kind of like enough is enough. And so my initial plan was to, work in the coaching industry and, be a coach within my industry that I was already familiar with, in healthcare.
Sure.
And I was going to work with doctors and, because doctors are not, they're not business people. They
Right.
don't know anything about that. So as an expert in, business and building business and marketing and sales and HR, and I've worn so many different hats that I knew that I would be successful doing that. But I wanted to, go back to school, make sure I had the certifications that I needed, just the credentials to back up my skill set. Well,
Sure.
doing that, I was exposed or introduced to sex and intimacy coaching.
Mhm.
And it hit me like, I just like a slap in the face, like, hello, how did I not know that this was out there? And
Yeah.
obviously, it's not a huge industry yet. However, I will tell you, side note, I did read an article written in I'm wanting to say it was 2018 or 2019, that by the year 2025, the sex coaching industry is going to be one of the most lucrative careers
Ooh, can you send that to
out
me?
there. And what's crazy is that, I'm totally not in it for the money though. My priorities now are so very, very different. I wanted to work for myself, but I wanted to build a business that could be mobile, because I don't want it to be about, working, from 9 to 8 every day and Monday through Friday or Tuesday through, I just want to be able to have my own business. I want to do something that I love. I want to do something that I relate to. I want to do something I'm good at, and I want to make a difference. And so when I was introduced to this niche, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And the first thing that was really intriguing to me was just the development of self.
Yes.
You when you go through, I think, some of the trauma that I have experienced and just the life in general, a long marriage with someone that you just were not in love with,
Mhm.
a job that was so overwhelming and, took so much of your time and energy. And, you find yourself overweight, unhealthy, unhappy, and not even unhappy, miserable, depressed. You start to isolate. You start to, you really, you don't know how you got where you were, and you're trying to figure things out. So when this came, and it was the first thing that really touched me was the self growth component, but more specifically, the act of falling in love with yourself.
Yes.
And that spoke hugely to me. Oh my gosh, just paramount, because, I have always had issues. And I think every woman on this planet does, with the way I look, with my weight, with my height, with my whatever. I would criticize and critique and put myself down, and it's this negative self-talk all the time. No wonder I was miserable. I didn't
Right.
accept myself. I didn't love myself. And I questioned who I was. Like a lot of people in our country, in our world, I experienced sexual abuse. And unfortunately, it wasn't just once. I
Yeah.
experienced it, on a very, brutal, awful level. And then I also experienced it with someone that I trusted for
Right.
years. So, that being a sex coach, but also being a victim and survivor of trauma and sexual abuse, and going through what I went through and knowing how much I struggled with my sexuality, because, people don't handle trauma and abuse the same way.
Right.
I kind of acted out and I became promiscuous for a while. And I wanted to basically take control of something that was taken from me, that I had no control over. And I couldn't really even piece that sentence together at the time, when I was trying to figure it all out. But I went to several therapists. I did all kinds of, different, medication. I mean, it's tough working through that. And it's even tougher to come out the other end. And I don't discredit therapy or counselors or psychologists or
Mm-hmm.
psychiatrists. I love the mental health field, don't get me wrong. But for me personally, that type of therapy never worked for me. It just didn't. So when I was looking at this specific niche and understanding that I could work with people that can relate to what I went through, and I can relate to what they went through, and hopefully by the grace of, our creator, if that's what you believe in, the universe,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully I can offer them something that will help them that was not offered to me. And that was huge. And then, like I said, I already touched on the self-love, that was huge as well. But, when I was married, even though I wasn't in a relationship that I cared to develop and stay in, I still did a lot of studying and research on how to be in a healthy relationship, and
Sure.
how to be, how to compromise, and how to treat someone, because I knew the way that I was in my marriage, because it wasn't really a marriage was so wrong. And again, it wasn't toxic. It wasn't anything like that. I got married because I was pregnant. My parents told me I had to.
Right.
That's just what it
Sure.
was.
Mm-hmm.
And, we hadn't even dated. I mean, I'm pretty sure I got pregnant the very first time we had sex. It just wasn't, I didn't know him. He didn't know me. He was 5 years older from a different place. It just, I don't know. It was what it was. Like I said, he's not a bad guy at all.
Yeah.
But just, if I were to choose to marry someone, it would have been someone different. I would have done it later. It just didn't work out how I thought it was going to. But hey, I got my oldest daughter, and I wouldn't change anything for the world. I don't care how much money you pay me. But
Right.
having a healthy relationship, when I finally was able to come out of my marriage, was very important to me. So again, fumbling onto this niche and seeing, oh my gosh, here are all the things that I have kind of been working on and already thinking about and wishing I could do and accomplish. And it was just like,
Yes.
and so I just hit the ground running. And, being also, a female that struggled with sexuality, having an attraction to the same gender, and then also having close family and friends. I have a really, really great friend of mine who is an open lesbian now. She did not come out until she was 40 years old.
That's
And that
really
is
difficult.
disgusting to me.
Yeah.
And it's all because she was terrified of
Yeah.
how she would be treated, what her family would say, what her friends would say, and it's just so sad that we live in a world where society dictates to us what's acceptable and what's not in regards to what we find attractive and what we don't, what arouses us and what doesn't. And so it just, the opportunity, and I know that, I'm not going to change the world or change it overnight or whatever, but I know I'm going to change something. And that's what gives me the drive and the passion that I have. I want to be able to work with people and let them know, hey, it is okay to be a freak. Hey, it's okay to be gay. Hey, it's okay to not give yourself a label at all.
Yeah.
Do you do what makes you happy? Do what makes you healthy? Communicate, be a good person, but don't worry about society and their opinions and what's considered politically correct and what's considered acceptable. Who gives a shit anymore?
Yep.
Because our world is going to hell in a handbasket over race, religion, politics, all the BS. And it's like, I hate to sound selfish, but at the same time, sometimes you have to do what makes you happy.
Yep.
And you
At
don't
the end of the day.
have to explain it to anyone unless you want to. And so, when I came into this nation, the more I did, the more schooling, the more studying, I just can't even tell you the amount of excitement that I have, regarding what I do. And I know a lot of people, they say every time I talk to you, it's just the passion and everything. It's so magnetic, but it's not fake. It totally is not fake for me at all, because I'm serious about all of these things, in regards to working with, sexual abuse victims. I've become certified in different therapeutic practices to be able to work with them. Although I am not a therapist, I take this very seriously, as far as, providing my clients with a completely safe, non-biased, no judgment, safe place to talk, explore, ask questions, and not be guilted and shamed. That's really a big deal to me, because I know so many people haven't had that. So that's me. That's how I got here. I'm sorry, that was a long answer.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play the first 15 minutes of our interview to myself whenever I start doubting myself. It's so funny, like, doing these interviews. You're my third interview this week, and it's crazy to me that it's almost like the universe sends me interviewees who need to teach me something in that moment.
Right.
And everyone this week is like, okay, Rachel, like, you're going to do the thing. Like,
right.
This is the thing you're going to do. So it's just really incredible. And I needed that. It's my own personal therapy. So thank you.
Yay.
Well, I guess let's get into sexual dysfunction. Let's start with the scientific definition, I suppose.
Okay. So basically, sexual dysfunctions or sexual disorders are basically any problem that happens at any point in the sexual response cycle, which is basically, arousal, excitement, sex, just that stage, where something is preventing you from experiencing satisfaction from sexual activity. And that is the basic, definition of sexual dysfunction. Now, there are about 4 different types or categories of sexual dysfunctions. And you basically have, an orgasm disorder, which is delay or absence of orgasm. You've got pain dysfunctions or disorders, where, men and women can experience pain during intercourse, either, during initial penetration or deep penetration, either or, it's just pain.
Sure.
And then you have desire disorders, where people struggle with a low sex drive or a high sex drive, or, whatever that is, that's kind of off the charts, so to speak. And then you have your arousal disorders, and those are going to include things like, erectile dysfunction, which is, being able to become aroused and stay aroused. Or you can go on the opposite end of the spectrum, and this can also mean premature ejaculation, where you're getting too excited, even possibly before sex even happens.
Sure.
So those are kind of the four areas of sexual dysfunctions and the general, definition.
I love that you covered those two, because I think that when we think of sexual dysfunction, sexual disorders, everybody's like ED. Like, it's always such a focus.
That is like the only thing everyone talks about.
I mean, because let's face it, we do live in a pretty penis-centric society.
We do.
That's part of it. But it's really interesting to, talk about all of these other things. There's issues of libido. There's, I talked to somebody about vaginismus a couple weeks ago. There are so many other things under the umbrella.
Yes, there are.
Frequently, these sexual disorders are not just physical. They usually manifest from a psychological area. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. A lot of people, and again, going back to the actual definition, it says sexual dysfunction is any problem. So it's not defining it as a physiological problem, as a medical problem. This is any problem. And so what a lot of people don't understand, even when they're convinced that it's physical, a lot of it is psychological. And, the amount of men and women that suffer from sexual dysfunctions at some point in their life, 43% of women and 31% of men. Now, I think the numbers are actually low, especially for the men, because men generally don't like to talk about it. They don't like to report it. So they're getting better, but there's more of a resistance in seeking help and healing and reversing those disorders than women, which is why and that's just my personal opinion, why I think the numbers are higher for women. But I have a lot of men, I have much more male clients who come to me with issues with sexual dysfunctions than I do women. But these statistics are 43% of women and 31% of men. That's a high number. That's a really, really high number. But here's the great thing. Regardless of whether your disorder is physical, physiological, medical, emotional, mental, whatever it is, all of the dysfunctions are basically going to follow the same protocol to unwind and heal and reverse. So, of course, you can have, the physical or medical or physiological things can be associated with things like hormonal imbalances, medication side effects. It could be diet, exercise. It could be, childbirth, menopause. It could be high blood pressure. You could be drinking alcohol too often. You could be smoking cigarettes. Right. There could be a lot of things that can contribute to the physiological reasons as to why, blood is not getting to the genitalia like it's supposed to. Age, plays a huge factor in physical, sexual dysfunctions. When you hit 40, yay, me. But even then, you'll find, and I have found that even then, when there is still a medical reason, it's usually paired with a
Sure.
psychological one as well. So, do you know the most important organ, sexual organ that we have? Do you know what that is?
I feel like, is this one of those trick questions?
Yes, it is.
Is it the
Smart,
skin?
Rachel. It's the brain.
Oh, well, duh. Yeah.
That is the most important sexual organ that we have. And it still amazes me what our minds are capable of. And they can physically impair us. They can stop us in our tracks. People who know all about performance anxiety know exactly what I'm talking about. Stress, divorce, breakups, mental health. Like if you're mentally not stable, yes, all of these things, negative sexual conditioning, which a lot of people have experienced. And there's so much guilt and shame associated with what their sexual fantasies, preferences, desires are. And they have dealt with it for so long. They've repressed it for so long. I mean, the men that I talk to, I sometimes I really honestly want to shed a tear, because even women, I know I was, my mom caught me masturbating when I was pretty young, and it was pretty traumatic because of course it was, oh my God, what are you doing? I mean, it was
Yep.
this huge deal, but guys, they're, especially when they're dealing with their moms or a sister or, a female person of the opposite, the other gender, they just get ridiculed. And so, a lot of guys will not understand what normal is. And I don't think anybody does, because there is no normal. But,
No.
it's like, oh my God, it is okay for you to like to role play. It is okay for you to like some bondage. It is okay that you masturbate every day. It's okay that you watch porn. It's okay to masturbate with your partner. I mean, it's the things that people are scared of. It just saddens me so deeply, because being a person who's gone through that transformation of falling in love with myself, accepting myself, finding who I was sexually, and becoming the person that I am right now is life changing. And,
Yes.
my motto is, how you show up in the bedroom is how you show up in life. And the reason why I say that is because when you have a relationship and it is everything and more than you could have possibly dreamed for, that energy and that love and that just loyalty and commitment to doing what you're doing and just continuing to grow and please the other person and grow in the relationship or relationships, whatever you choose, that carries over into every area of your life. You can't tell me that if you leave a happy home in a beautiful relationship or relationships, however you choose to lead your life, and you are so happy and you're content and you just wouldn't change anything if you could, you can't tell me that you don't bring that into work. You can't tell me that you don't bring that in when you're volunteering, on the weekends with your kids at the homeless shelter. You can't tell me that that energy and that love doesn't just radiate outside of you constantly, because I know that it does. And so I tell people all the time, it's like, it's so important, to accept who you are. And who you are is okay. And I hate that I even have to say that to
I
people.
know.
It's like nothing's wrong with you, but the guilt, the shame, I mean, men and women have been disowned from their families.
Absolutely.
Partners have left them and blasted them all over social media. for being a freak or being weird or whatever. And it's just sad. And yes, that is called negative sexual conditionings or conditioning. We become conditioned to react and to hide and to cover things up. And yeah, all of that, it's exhausting. And mentally, you are beating yourself up because you're struggling with, is this right? Is this wrong? Am I weird? Am I not? Should I talk about this? Should I hide it? And unfortunately, I mean, we've got people who are marrying women and men they're not attracted to just because society says, hey, you need to, this is what's
Right.
considered cute. We've
Absolutely.
got, men and women who are in relationships with when they don't really want to be tied down. There are so many types of people. Everyone's different. And that's why I hate titles. I really, people ask me, oh, are you bisexual? No, I'm just Ansley. I'm attracted to men. I'm attracted to women. I don't prefer to be in relationships with women, but women are beautiful. They're sexy. I'm not really ever closed off to anything. I mean, I guess how could I be? I'm a sex coach, but I don't think that I don't think titles are necessary, to be honest with you. Everyone is allowed to be who they are. People who judge should be ashamed of themselves. People who guilt and shame and, belittle and condemn the people that are just living their lives and being, they should be guilted and shamed. They should be belittled and berated and, backed into a corner and made to feel like they're 3 inches tall because they're the ones that are wrong. And that's, my hopes. And talking about this specific subject, it's like, again, even if there's some physical reasons, some medical reasons as to why you're experiencing some things, 9 times out of 10, when you come and see me, we will drill down
Yep.
to a lot of other things to uncover and peel back those different layers to find out, what's really going on. And even the, people that come to me and say, you know what, I don't really think I need this. My partner and we're doing great. We have a great stuff, blah, 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 blah. Well, not really. I mean, it might be good, don't get me wrong, to today's standards, but being authentic and being just organically you and being unafraid of talking about anything and just being you. It's people don't do it.
Right.
And you can't really ask the question why, because the reason why is because of the reaction from other people if we were to speak up.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so that's kind of the psychological, which I get so excited about, reasons behind sexual dysfunctions. But like I
I mean,
said,
there's shame, there's
mhm,
sexual trauma, there's
mhm,
religion. I mean, there's so much that can come
exactly.
into play. And again, I love that you touched on all of them.
Yeah, and the good thing is that whether it is purely medical or emotional, 9 times out of 10, it's temporary anyway. Sexual dysfunctions do not have to be, a long-term thing. Now, when I say that, again, I'm not a medical professional, so I do strongly, I mean, I advise all of my patients, get checked out medically first. Because
Sure.
what we want to do is we want to rule out everything else. Check your hormone levels, check, if you are past menopause, yeah, you could be dealing with things like, I mean, obviously when you get a little bit older, it is, the skin starts to thin,
Mm-hmm.
you've got issues with like painful sex, it's vaginal atrophy. I mean, it
Right.
happens, but what you do, and which is, estrogen loss, things like that, those can all be, those can be fixed. Um, So go and get checked out medically, rule everything out. And then when you come to me, then we get down to the nitty gritty. And the thing
Yes.
about it is, like I said, because sexual dysfunctions are so many times related to a psychological issue, and because they're not permanent, and because even if it is medical, it's still just a temporary thing. You can do things, and I'll tell you, I will outline the 4 steps for you, here on the podcast. It's
Oh, yeah.
anyone who commits the time, the energy, and it's not, an overnight thing. I mean, you have to really kind of let yourself go. You have to become present with yourself. You have to understand the feelings that you have, the reservations, the questions. You have to sometimes step way outside of your comfort zone, because sometimes I'm dealing with women who've never masturbated before. They don't even
Mm.
know how to pleasure themselves. So it's kind of like, well, baby, if you don't know how to pleasure yourself, how are you going to tell someone else to do it for you? And it's just, well, it's dirty. And, my grandmother taught me it's not ladylike. And, well,
You'll
okay,
go
well,
blind.
right. And so those old fashioned, historic, or prehistoric, those values, those are, like, again, old fashioned. We're in the year 2021. Masturbation and self pleasure is a must. And again, it's part of the process of knowing who you are, accepting who you are, loving yourself, and then being able to communicate through words and body language with your partner or partners what it is that you enjoy, what it is that arouses you. Because just like there's no, blanket approach, for sexual preferences or whatever, there's no blanket approach for healing and overcoming dysfunctions, because what
Mhm.
pleasures me may not pleasure you. So everyone has to really, they have to just, first and foremost, the 4 steps, like I said, I'll touch on those real quick. The first step is determining the source, whether it's medical or psychological. The second thing that you need to, basically find out is what exactly is what's your course of action. And it's here where I work with clients to really, again, drill down into, okay, so if you haven't processed feelings, or if you've been blocking emotions, um, you have to really learn how to, I'll teach, some meditation practices.
Mhm.
But more so, it's like, you have to get out of your own head.
Yes.
And, if you are doing things like masturbation practices that are desensitizing you, or you're always watching porn when you're having sex, or that's the only thing that can arouse you, yeah, that's an issue. I mean, I hate to say it, but you have to feel it to heal.
Yeah.
So, getting in touch with your body, you have to figure out your personal course of action, and then you have to stick to it. And not only do you have to stick to it, but you have to progressively, learn every time and grow every time. And maybe if you're uncomfortable, step outside of your comfort zone just a little more every time. But if you commit to that, and you commit to those practices, and you commit to really becoming vulnerable with yourself, it, I mean, it does wonders.
It's a
And
game
then,
changer.
yes, very much so. And then the third thing is, you're basically, creating the sexuality training, and pleasuring. And then it's like, again, the thing is, you can't approach it as a problem that you're trying to fix. That,
Yes.
a lot of men will have that, fix it mindset, which, a lot of
Well,
women nowadays
yes.
with the masculine energy type of thing, we have that too, but, but you
Just
got
had
to
this
get out.
conversation with my partner.
Right.
I was like, stop trying to fix everything.
Right. And it's like, you have to really get out of your own head and you have to treat it, as basically just something you're exploring. New things that you're learning. You have no expectation, no result, no specific outcome, no time. Yeah, if you want to set aside an hour, yes, that's preferable. 30 minutes, whatever you decide, and try to stick to it. But if you don't, it's not, no one's going to break in your room and hold you at gunpoint. It's
Right.
not that serious. While it is, it's really not. So, and then last, it's like when you're in a relationship, and most of us are, whether it's a committed relationship, an open relationship, a casual relationship, whatever the case may be, we have to create more connection and deeper communication. And that means talking. And it's
Yes.
hard for people, though it's really hard. And I get it because I've been there, done that, got the t-shirts. It's hard to have a conversation with someone, especially when you're talking about sexual disorders.
Yes.
That's a hard
Absolutely.
conversation.
Well, and that's one of the questions that I had. So I've talked to, so I guess, again, because we live in a penis-centric society, I'll use ED as an example. But so I've talked to some, in this case, women who have had male partners who have had issues with, and I don't even like using the word issues, but have, had difficulty performing, and they take it personally. It becomes a thing that's totally about them, or they become judgmental, or, what can a supportive partner do, whether male or female? In this particular example, it's a woman,
Right,
but
exactly. Well, unfortunately, sexuality is tied directly to our egos.
yes,
And
sure is.
it's just like, say, for example, Rachel, if you are with your partner and you have an hour long session of great sex and then you figure out that they didn't even orgasm, you take it personally, don't you?
At one point, I would have. Not really
Right.
anymore.
Right. So maybe not anymore, but traditionally that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of how we think. So
You're like, I
men,
was amazing.
especially, right. Oh my God, you didn't? Oh, I did like four. No, it's everyone is different, and that's okay. But sexuality, because it is just tied directly to our ego like that, especially with men, because they are taught, to be the providers, and
Yes.
it's just how they've been brought up in our society. So yeah, it affects people very deeply and intensely. So the best thing that you can do, to talk or to even broach the subject is obviously be very gentle with your approach. Really, what you want to try to do is inspire them by focusing on you and improving the relationship. So, again, it's kind of like with arguing. When you argue, when you kind of step back and you say to yourself, okay, this is ridiculous because I'm stressing out and getting angry over the behavior of another person, which is something I obviously can't control. So
Mm-hmm.
why am I worrying about that? I need to worry about myself. I need to control, or I need to focus on the things that I can control. And the only thing I can control is me, right? So it's kind of the same
Absolutely.
approach. You say, to your partner, babe, I'm really excited about working towards, maybe me or you, achieving this first goal. And I read this book, and so it becomes more, it's not an attack, and it's not, it's not a conversation where they start feeling bad. You want to, again, you want to inspire them. You want to excite them to be able to kind of get out of their feelings a little bit and become
Right.
excited with you. And that's really, I mean, it's the approach. And I hate to be so vague about it, but it's all how you communicate. It's all how you deliver the message. And it's all about making it not so much about them, but about you and the relationship, because you're not going to want to point fingers at anyone, because that's never going to do anyone any
Exactly.
good. Yeah,
Right. I mean, it's all about like, how do you like, sex is about connection. And if you're
exactly.
connecting, if you orgasm, that's great. And if you don't, like, did you have fun? Did you feel
Right.
connected to your partner? Also great. So,
Well, and the thing about it
yeah.
is that, penetration does not have to happen for sex
Mm-hmm.
to take place. That's what people don't
Correct.
understand. And
Yes.
just because, like, if if there's a man involved and he loses an erection or his erection, that does not mean that the game is over. We have
Mm-hmm.
hands, mouths, toys. I mean, we have so many other things, but again, people, because we live in a society where everything is wham bam thank you ma'am, we've gotten away from, you know 30, 45-minute, hour long foreplay. We've gotten away from, continuing to play and, and bring in, like I said, your hands, your mouth, your toys, whatever it is that you want to after, sex has taken place. Because most of the time when you do that, the male is going to get another erection, and a lot
Yes.
of time penetration does happen again. But people just, I don't know, they just have forgotten to slow down. They have forgotten to include the things that they once enjoyed, or the things that they know that their partner enjoys,
Yes.
because we all don't
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the same things, and that's fine. But there's so much more to sex than just penetration.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, sometimes when, if there's, in a sexual situation, you can like just sit on their face for a little bit. And,
Exactly.
that my partner says frequently that, going down south, it always kind of helps. I mean, he's like, how can you not get hard?
Exactly. 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 But even if, say both of you are just exhausted, maybe it's
Right.
been, maybe it's been just an exciting session and okay, great. Then lay down and do some kind of lazy massaging, do
Mm-hmm.
some, turn on one of your favorite, I don't know, porn movies. I love the older foreign flicks.
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
like, when we might slow things down, in order to kind of pick them back up, I'll turn on a movie like that. It's not hardcore, but it's still sexy, and it has a story, and you can't really understand what they're saying, but you get what's going on because it's
The body
just
language is
you.
there.
Right. So you still put in effort. You don't just throw your hands up and just, leave the room and go jump in the shower. It's like, yeah, this whole wham, bam, thank you, ma'am mentality is not doing
Absolutely.
our couples or our just anyone any good. It's just not.
And penetration's great, but like the majority of women, I don't remember the exact statistic, the majority of women can't come from penetration alone.
Yes,
So,
majority of women cannot, so, a clitoral orgasm is much more, I guess, normal for women
mhm.
to experience during, sexual activity, not necessarily penetration. But yeah, it is more difficult. It's a lot more difficult for women to achieve orgasm, just strictly through penetration.
Absolutely. I do have to say, the not magnum opus, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, like the golden grail that I'm always seeking is
Mhm.
clitoral and penetrative orgasm at the same time, which I feel
Oh,
like
well,
I've
that
done
is. Yeah.
I've only done it like maybe a handful of times in my life, but holy shit, every time that it happens, I'm just like, did I die? Like, is this heaven? I don't know. So, but it takes
Well, yeah.
time.
Yeah, it takes time. And then also, for those of us that, are, open to anal play and penetration and stuff like that, even the orgasms that way, especially if you are stimulating the clitoris at the same time. Those orgasms are even different. I mean, there are several different types of orgasms for men and women, depending on what you're doing and how you achieve them. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. I feel like I have learned so much from this conversation. I'm so excited about
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you asked me to be a part of this. I get really excited, as you can tell, about what I
I'm
do.
all about it. I'm all
So,
about it.
I love that you have this podcast, and hopefully maybe sometime next year, maybe I'll be back on.
Yeah, no, I would love to have you back on again. Maybe to discuss the anal play that you were just talking about. I don't think I've had
Absolutely.
to talk about that quite yet. So, yeah, but can you let people know where they can find you?
Absolutely. So my website is www.sexcoachansleybrooke.com. And currently, I'm only managing 2 social media platforms, and that is Facebook and Instagram. And both handles are at Sex Coach Ansley Brooke.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Ansley. And yeah, I would love to chat with you more about a ton of other stuff coming forward. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Rachel.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. This has been Wine, Dine, and 69. I am your host, Rachel Dalton, and let's keep talking.